Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of Track Walk in MX Bikes, where today we are playing the just released REIX, which stands for Resolute Enduro Indoor Extreme. There goes that truck down the street. But this track is a replica of the Super Enduro Indoor Extreme track, which is in Spain. I actually don't know how long it's been open for, but it's a track that Mario Roman built, and it's in this incredibly tight, kind of narrow warehouse, but it's got a bunch of enduro aspects to it. It's got, some tires. It's got some, center dividers laid over and stuff like that. It's got, pipes, more tires, rocks, logs, and it has all been masterfully replicated here by Mr. Resolute Kraken. So for this video, I'm going to ride for a couple laps here, talk about the track and what it feels like to ride it. And then for much of this video, you're actually going to just see more or less like some raw laps from me, while a interview that I did with Resolute Kraken about this track plays over in the background. So you're going to hear a lot of cool insight from the Kraken himself about what went into making this track, building it, making it look the way it is, etc., etc. But before we get to that, let's, of course, ride it. There's a lot of really unique things about this track that I'll try to quickly go over before we dive into the video or the interview, I should say, with myself and Resolute. But what you do have to know about this track is that unless you are fairly proficient at slow speed physics in this game, you might have a bit of a tough time because it is very tight and twisty. And I went for that double and didn't quite get it, but still landed it. YOLO. Very tight and twisty, kind of hard to navigate if you're not that good yet with tight turns. But once you do get used to the tight turn side of things, this track is definitely a lot of fun. Whoa, got ejecto-cedo cuz across the track, and my bike ended up somehow right next to me again. But yeah, very, very fun enduro track, which I didn't actually expect to be saying that sentence and MX bikes in the same sentence, because the slow speed physics with bikes are such that it is really hard to do anything that's kind of tricky like this, I feel like. But man, talk about nailing a good balance on this track. I feel like Kraken has done a terrific job of making everything fairly rideable. I'm not doing a good job of showing it right now, but like, look at these rocks. Like, these are big rocks, and he's done a great job of making it so you can just kind of hop over them. This little jump is a finish line jump right here. Went over the bars there, of course, just because why else would I ride good the second I have to do so on camera? Hopefully when I get off camera and we just talk to Kraken a little bit, that I'll ride better. But here's a look at the whole track, and couple jumps here at the end that you have to get over. But then you're back at the start right here. You cut back across, and this is pretty much a lap on the full track. So, like I said, I'm going to just do some more riding on this track and try to get some good lap times in and do a little bit more hard focus mode on it. But you guys are going to listen to myself and Resolute Kraken talk about this track and his whole process with building this incredible facility. First question I have for you is, why did you decide specifically this track? Like, were there other tracks that you had interest in building, or was this one always one that you had like on your radar that you wanted to replicate, and now you just had enough time and an opportunity to make it?
Yeah, a couple reasons. This actually isn't the first Super Enduro or EnduroCross track that I've done. I've had a couple of the 2020 Super Enduro courses already worked on and finished pretty much, because we were planning on doing a series sometime in 2022. But those ones, they turned out to be, a little bit harder. And so I was like thinking to slowly get people into EnduroCross and MX bikes, with the slow physics and everything. I thought I need to have an easier track for somebody to start on. And so this place, it opened up last year. This is called SEIX or SEIX. I don't know exactly how they pronounce it, in Spain. And it was one of the tracks. There's another EnduroCross track that a lot of the pros go and practice at, also in Spain, an outdoor one. But this one was kind of interesting just because it was in a warehouse. It's kind of more compact. And it's pretty much, it was a good challenge for me, just because it's inside, and it was just pretty cool, like Mario Roman and Billy Bolt. If you follow those guys on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you'll always see they've been practicing there. And it was actually The course was designed by Mario Roman, so that's kind of why I chose to do it.
Yeah, I saw Bolt had like a naughty crash there like a week ago. He clipped one of the walls with his back tire in his hip or something like that. It was oof.
Yeah, he got a bunch of stitches in his arm.
Yeah.
So if you actually, that second red door coming out of the warehouse, there's a Billy Bolt sticker on it with some scratches on the door. So that's what that is, Easter egg kind of.
That's very clever. I didn't even realize that. Actually, a little off topic of this, maybe tell us a little bit of like your background and why you're so into enduro, because the people I think know you mostly from the Krakenberg, but like you say, you're very invested in doing a lot of this enduro stuff. So why the interest in enduro, and kind of how did you build into like playing bikes and deciding that you wanted to build tracks within like enduro side of it more so than any like moto or supercross or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, my background in real life is basically, I used to race motocross, did some local supercross in Colorado when I was growing up. And I'm probably on the older spectrum of any of the MX bikes player. So I don't want to date myself, but, I've done a couple of cross country races, more, type of, I don't know if you'd call them Grand Prix type, cross country enduro type things when I was younger. But mainly I got interested in like the hard enduro stuff, especially just watching people like Graham Jarvis, and the Erzberg Rodeo, and just seeing what these guys can do on bikes is, I mean, a lot of them come from trials background, and just what those guys can do on a bike just amazes me. And I'm at the age right now where I'm probably not going to do motocross again, but I can definitely get an enduro bike, go out on the trail, and that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm just waiting on my bike to get off the boat probably, and I'll be doing that next year, so hopefully maybe I'll get some IRL videos out there.
Well, right on. Back to the track though, you obviously have a very long process, and we saw with some of your streams from the Krakenberg Enduro, how much time and kind of preciseness you put into how you lay things down, and how much effort goes into these tracks. How much time would you say from beginning to end this specific track took though?
Yeah, this one, it probably took start to finish over the course of 3 months. Probably roughly on a conservative side, probably 360 hours roughly. And that's like a part-time job basically. And this one, creating the track with the obstacles, that probably only took me a few days at max, just 12 hours maybe. Basically because I have a system down for doing these EnduroCross tracks, because I had already finished the other two. So there's some copy and paste I can do on things like the logs, and some of the tire jumps, but not very hard. It's basically all of the environment that was the tough part.
Yeah, the environment looks incredible. Like, how much when you do the environment is, trying to replicate everything to a specific detail versus maybe having a little bit more leeway or freedom with it, where you place things in certain areas, or, when you're in the second building, I guess, you did those animated files of those people in the window. Like, how much do you almost venture off of like the super realistic side of the environment side of it every once in a while?
I personally would love to make it like 1-to-1 replica, exactly everything the same. Better animated models of people, if the game allowed it. Unfortunately, it doesn't. And just performance-wise, like I would like to add a lot more stuff to the building itself, and I added enough so I think you get the idea of that's what the place looks like. If you walked into that building, you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Or I think if the owners or my Roman, Billy Bolt, those guys saw a video of my track, they would know exactly where it's at. But as far as the obstacles and stuff, I tried to make it as close to exact as I could. The scaling is a little off. I went off of Google Maps, and even when you place something like a building in Blender directly on top of the warehouse, I put a rectangle on it. It seems like the length of the warehouses when you're playing the game, it's a little long. So like those pipe jumps and the tire jumps, they're a little spaced out more than I think in real life.
How much, by the way, my background into building tracks comes from sim, and I knew in sim that a lot of the times when you placed an object like a log or tires or something like that, that you had to have a very clear like run up ramp to it, or else the collision files would just not work very well with the game. So how much of your time is dedicated to almost making that precise little ramp in bikes so that, you know, the tires make the correct angle with the collision files of the log or of the, you know, the rocks or whatever? Like, is there a lot of intricate play with that type of detail?
Initially, so when I did the first EnduroCross track that we worked on, and again, those will be released sometime next year, but there was a lot of research. Me worked out with like bouncing ideas off of like Ruben, and then Osmeralda has been working with me on stadiums and things like that. But based off of we had to do some experimentations on like the angle for the logs, especially just because you have to work around the physics in this game, even when you're building the track for obstacles like these. Like if you want to do logs or these tires, you just can't put a collision object on that tire and expect it to work without flipping your bike, shooting you to the moon, other things like that. So there was some experimentation there, and like the rock garden, for instance. You can't just have a whole bunch of sharp rocks, otherwise you're just going to bounce and it's going to throw the bike all over. So that you kind of have to smooth things out, and my goal was just to make it representative. Like, yeah, I'm going through a rock garden, it's bouncing the bike around a little bit, but you're not going to crash because of it. And I don't know, you kind of feel like you're kind of a pro when you're going through it, I guess. You don't have to really practice too much or worry about the physics and like something like the rock garden there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I was most impressed with when I first played the track was not necessarily the rock garden, but the section of rocks that are kind of sporadically placed. The first time I hit that section, I went like right at a big rock, and I just went kind of like right over. Like I didn't even like think too hard about it, and that surprised me because I know how, and you know how weird the slow physics with bikes can be, where the front tire jabs weird directions and suddenly you're 50 feet the other direction. So like I said, is there like almost a precise art to how you angle each rock, how it's angled into the ground, how deep you put it into the ground, or is there a little bit of leeway in a respect where you can kind of be a little bit random and it still kind of works out?
Yeah, so basically just some technical information for MX bikes. When you're building your tracks, there's two files you have. You have your what you refer to as like your collision file, and then you have your map file, which is everything you can see. So when I build the terrain, those can actually be two different things when you build it. So like you see my rocks there, there's actually the collision file for those don't look exactly the same as the 3D rock that you're viewing. So it's a little smoothed out. You don't really have to, it's just a little bit of trial and error. So I'll just place the rocks, then I do some things to build the collisions for them, and then I kind of just smooth them out, see does it work, does it throw you any single way. If it does, I just smooth it out a little bit. If it feels too smooth, I'll build it back up. And like I said, I have kind of a process now in Blender to be able to do that pretty easy.
I actually didn't know that, so I'm learning myself, actually. With track building, too, there's always something that you get stuck on, I feel like, with every track. What was it with this track? Was it, you know, placing those logs and trying to get that exact file right? Was it the displacement to base with that you were trying to make everything perfect? Was it decals? Was it, you know, models? What was the toughest part for you?
Mainly everything for me is a learning experience. I mean, I'm not a 3D artist by trade, so I've had to learn everything from scratch. You know, everybody that learns, you go through the TFC tutorials first, and then eventually try to make your things better. So you graduate to making your own models. So on this one particular, like building this warehouse to be, you know, representative of the real one took the most time. And when you see the track, it's in a warehouse. I have lights. This game doesn't support lights. It only has one general sun in the game engine, so you gotta fake all your lights. So in this track in particular, I had to what's called, you know, bake all of my shadow maps. So in Blender, all my objects. My warehouse is there. I have all my lighting set up in Blender, and then I'm baking the shadow map, which is just a black and white image of where your shadows fall and your light falls. And then that's how I have like all the shadows baked onto objects, onto the ground. It's more noticeable out in like the parking lot. You'll see all the shadows around the cars in various places there. But that was the hardest part because, again, I'm learning every time I do this. And that's kind of why I do the tracks, is because I just like learning new things. And it's a good excuse to play on the computer and actually make something.
That's really cool, too, because I do sometimes see people with tracks where they get to maybe a certain point with the track where they feel they've made a good track. They haven't done maybe too much to the environment, and they maybe rush release it because they've already put so much work into the track itself. But you seem to care a lot about the environment as well. And like you say, it's a learning process. So what of both of those do you find the most enjoyable with building the track, but then still finding an extra level to continue on with the environment and make sure that it looks as good as it does?
Yeah, I think I enjoy more making the track look realistic with the environment. Of course, I want it to ride good, like on the Krakenberg, I did my best to my ability at that time, and plus, again, working. The main limiter in this is all the game engine. It's not made for enduro. It's not made for hard enduro. Pibozo wasn't thinking about that when he built the game. We're kind of just co-opting his engine to do these cool enduro things, I think. And so we have to work around those physics and being able to pull off some of those enduro moves and things like that, and putting in these obstacles. That's kind of really satisfying. But at the end of the day, I think I really just like making models and things. So it's probably, if the environment looks really cool. But again, it's a split though. I mean, you still want it to ride good. But definitely you could have the best riding track. And personally, I'm probably not going to play it that much because I like good graphics. I like looking at things when I'm riding around. If you have, sorry to you guys, I know some of the track makers, they all have different abilities, different amounts of time available to them. But yeah, take that little bit of extra time, push yourself and make something that looks nice, you can be proud of, and other people want to ride. That's my advice.
That's really, really cool. And I appreciate the time, and I think a lot of people appreciate hearing more of your insight as well. I know some of the videos I've done in the past, you yourself were like, man, it would be great to hear from the track builders. So it's great to actually have you on and hear your kind of process with building this, because man, that is a lot of work. I don't know if I would have spent 360 hours on a track, but I mean, that's cool because there's people out there like you that want to know how to build these tracks, and maybe they'll get involved based on what you have to say. So appreciate the time. That's been really cool to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And then I just want to say thanks to a few people. All the artwork, the custom logos that you see on the track were done by Green Lennox. He's my go-to guy when I need art. And also to Insane from MXP Mods and Green Lennox. Also, they helped me out with a couple of bike models that you'll see in the parking lot. Those are, if you look closely, those will be maybe some future things in a future Enduro pack. And also JV. He gave me a water tank that you see on the track, also a model. And again, JV for probably inspiring me a little bit. You got to try to live up to, try to attain JV status on your track building now. He's kind of raised the bar of where everything's at.
Yeah, JV stuff is pretty ridiculous. Actually, I will end with this to cap off of what you're talking about with some of the future things coming with models and things like that. What is next for you? Because I don't think that it sounds like you're someone that likes to just sit and enjoy looking at the track for a little bit. You kind of have the intuition to want to work on something next. So is there something down the pipe that we can expect, or are we just going to have to sit back and wait?
Well, like I mentioned, I want to get at least 6 total EnduroCross Super Enduro tracks built before we'll have a series sometime in 2022. Beginning of the year is going to be a little busy for me. I need to take a little bit break from track building. But then hopefully sometime early next year, we'll be able to kick that series off. And I have a backlog of projects that I want to work on. I want to do some more bigger enduros, not as big as the Krakenberg, but something like the Getson Rodeo, and a couple of these new. They're going to a lot of new places in 2022 for the World Championship for hard enduro. So, and maybe even try to get the back to the U.S. side for like the what is it, the TKO knockout in Tennessee that's part of the World Championship now. So maybe do that track.
Well, that all sounds fantastic. I'm definitely going to look forward to that series, and all of you guys watching this video should as well. If you guys want to see more Resolute stuff, you can also check out his channel because he's uploaded a lot of cool stuff over there. But also, like he said, he's involved with the MXB mod side of things, and you know, you post all of your tracks there. But also, the forums is a good tool for anybody that's curious about track building. Go to the forums. There's a lot of great tutorials and other things like that. I'll include all the links in the description below. And again, Resolute, very much appreciate your time and appreciate this track, dude. It's a lot of fun.
I appreciate it, Kellen. Thanks for having me on.